The purpose of this presentation is to examine and explain the implications of discretionary fiscal policy, more specifically how changes in government spending and/or tax cuts have affected the economy as a whole over the years. The topics being discussed today include what is discretionary fiscal policy, as well as the two different types, how it can be used to stabilize the economy, when it's been used in the past, the different complications some may see, and how it has affected the economy overall. So, to start off, the question becomes, is there anything the federal government can do to address an economic situation where the economy is inconsistent due to suffering a recession or experiencing demand pull inflation? The answer is yes. Discretionary fiscal policy is referred to when the government actively changes the level of taxation, spending, or both, also known as a deliberate manipulation of government spending and taxes by Congress. There are several goals of this, including to alter real domestic output, stimulate economic growth, control inflation, and influence aggregate demand. In addition, this policy is usually initiated by the President with the help of the CEA, or Council of Economic Advisors. So now, going into this a little further, there are two types of discretionary fiscal policy. When an economy is experiencing a recession, typically there is a decrease in aggregate demand, a declining level of real GDP, a low inflation rate, and the unemployment rate is above the natural rate of unemployment. In order to combat this recession, expansionary fiscal policy is used. Expansionary fiscal policy includes increasing government spending, reducing taxes, or a combination of both. Increasing government spending will in turn increase aggregate demand and increase consumption spending due to increased income generated. This is known as the multiplier effect. The multiplier effect refers to the proportional amount of increase or decrease in income that is a product of any injection or withdrawal of capital. Now, reducing taxes will increase income and consumption spending, reduce costs of goods to foreigners, which would increase exports, and more investments would become profitable. When an economy is experiencing demand pull inflation, typically there's an increase in aggregate demand, an upward pressure on price level or inflation, strong GDP, and low unemployment. In order to control demand pull inflation, contractionary fiscal policy is used. Contractionary fiscal policy includes decreasing government spending, increasing taxes, or a combination of both. Decreasing government spending will in turn decrease aggregate demand and decrease income and consumption spending through the multiplier effect as explained before. Increasing taxes will decrease both generated income and consumption spending, decrease exports due to an increase in the cost of goods to foreigners, and fewer investments will become profitable. Here, you can see how discretionary fiscal policy is used to stabilize the economy. As you can see on the graph on the left, the economy is facing a recession. The economy is producing a real GDP at Y1, however, this is below its potential level at YP. Expansionary fiscal policy is used here to increase aggregate demand from 81 to 82 in order to reach this potential. If the government increases spending, you can see that aggregate demand will increase as well. As you can see on the right, the economy is facing inflation at Y1. Contractionary fiscal policy is used here to decrease aggregate demand from 81 to 82 and reach the potential. If government cuts spending, you can see that aggregate demand will decrease as well, ultimately stabilizing inflation. So, when has discretionary policy been used in the past? The recession of 1960 to 1961 was caused by adjustments in several industries. A decrease in the inventory of these industries led to a temporary reduction in profits and raised interest rates in order to control inflation, a similar response as the recession before. As a result, GDP dropped nearly 2% and unemployment reached nearly 7%. In response, President JFK urged stimulus spending, including tax cuts, and also expanded unemployment as well as Social Security benefits. With this help, the economy exhibited rapid growth with low inflation. Here, we look at the Great Recession and the 2008 financial crisis. This was caused by a number of reasons, including the collapse of the U.S. housing bubble and failing banks. As a result, unemployment reached as high as 10% and GDP decreased by about 4.3%. The fiscal response here included tax cuts, fiscal stimulus, increases in both unemployment insurance and food stamp benefits, as well as bank bailouts. Now, demand pull inflation did play a role here as it ties directly to an increase in aggregate demand. It occurs when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply, causing prices to spike. This contributed to asset inflation during the 2008 financial crisis. Since demand pull inflation relates to government spending, money supply, and foreign growth, borrowing became affordable due to low interest rates, and so this led to a rise in demand. This demand caused market prices to surge, and eventually the entire financial market was overvalued. Eventually, economic growth averaged at about 2% in the first 4 years of discovery. Despite that, many argue that recovery has been uneven. As you can see here, this is the distribution of wealth by wealth percentile. The response by the government helped inflate the value of those assets owned by the wealthy, but not those at the bottom of the pay scale. It can be seen that inequality grew, and so while some may say the stimulus helped, it was also distributed inconsistently. The COVID-19 recession caused a very fast and deep decline in employment and economic activity due to continuous lockdowns. This decline was largely due to reductions in both supply, or the production of goods and services, and demand, or the spending aspect of it. The immediate response here was fiscal and monetary stimulus. As you can see in this graphic, spending was distributed amongst a number of groups, including a very large stimulus of almost $1.9 trillion to individuals and families. While this did lead to economic recovery, the recovery was still uneven and incomplete. Demand for goods and services recovered faster than the supply, and demand for labor also recovered faster than the supply. In addition, many people held on to their stimulus checks rather than spending them right away, which also contributed to this inconsistent recovery. There are a few complications of fiscal policy that created the uneven recovery that's been seen over the years. One of these complications include timing. The timing it takes to become aware of a recession or inflationary gap after it has begun is crucial in responding to it on time. This is known as the recognition lag. Also, once the issue is recognized, it is imperative to change policy in a timely manner. Sometimes, the government finds difficulty in this, causing a little delay, which is known as administrative lag. Further, operational lag refers to the many times the economy does not react in the timely way the policy is intended for it to react. These lags were seen throughout many recessions and inflationary periods and contributed to slower and unequal recoveries. Another complication is known as the crowding out effect. This theory argues that more government spending reduces private spending. This is largely due to governments competing to borrow with everybody else with limited savings available. In turn, this reduced private spending has the ability to weaken or cancel fiscal policy stimulus. Lastly, the stance on fiscal policy differs everywhere. Some people believe that monetary policy is more efficient, others believe fiscal policy helps push the economy in a certain direction, while monetary policy is used for tweaking the small stuff. During the COVID-19 recession, both fiscal and monetary policy were used. As seen through the recession and inflation gaps over the years, discretionary fiscal policy can be effective in helping the economy get back on its feet, but it can also impede fast recovery. Manipulation of government spending and taxes by Congress can alter aggregate demand, control inflation, and stimulate economic growth in a positive way. An increase or decrease in government spending and/or an increase or decrease of taxes can help combat a recession or control demand pull inflation. While these actions have been seen to help, they also have negatively impacted recovery periods. While employment rose in some cases, many of the jobs were ones where the median income was below the federal poverty level. Also, those owning assets such as real estate and stocks were rewarded more than those at the bottom of the pay scale. All in all, there are many implications of discretionary fiscal policy. Changes in government spending and tax cuts have affected the economy both positively and negatively over the years.